Hi there, my name is Tara. I was asked to do a video explaining why I chose to study biology. I'm currently a physiotherapist who's working in the Aurelia area. However, in 2017, I graduated from an Honors Bachelor of Science from the University of Toronto with a major in anthropology and a double minor in biology and psychology. I chose to go into biology because I grew up in an area which has a lot of wildlife. I grew up next to a provincial park and I was always exposed to nature and wildlife, and biology just seemed to be the most natural fit in terms of what I wanted to go on to study. Um, I wasn't totally sure what I wanted to do, but I knew that I wanted to research the way people worked and why. So I went into biology because it seemed like the best fit. So, working as a physiotherapist was not originally my plan. So, when I was in my undergrad, I was in a biology program, psychology, anthropology, um, and I really liked all three of those. And I was planning on going to medical school. So, I took summer school courses and I had really high grades. And I took my MCAT in third year, and I did, reasonably well. Probably not well enough to get into medical school, but okay. And I applied to medical school and did not get in. And the difference was a bunch of my friends went on and they reapplied multiple times, and they did get into medical school. So a few of them are doctors now. However, I was feeling really burnt out at the end of the 4 years, and I didn't feel like applying again. I was just sort of demotivated. Um, at the same time, I had had a couple of injuries because I used to do cross country running and things like that, and I had to go to get physiotherapy for it. So when I went to go get physiotherapy, I really enjoyed it actually. I saw the way that people were working with exercise rather than medication, and working with doctors through medication and exercise to help somebody get better. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. Um, so keeping that in the back of my mind, I went traveling for 6 weeks and then worked for the rest of the year. And then when it came time to apply for master's programs, I sort of looked at a whole bunch of different things. I went and I saw a career counselor for 2 sessions who really helped like narrow things down for me, and I identified a whole bunch of different avenues that I was interested in pursuing. Like I was really interested in veterinary medicine and physiotherapy and medicine and different things like that, sort of in healthcare. Um, so after that, I sort of narrowed down a few things that I was interested in. Unfortunately, I didn't have the prerequisites for veterinary, so that sort of helped narrow things even more. Um, and then after that, I applied to programs that I did meet the requirements for and that I was interested in. So I ended up applying to occupational therapy and physiotherapy at the University of Toronto, at Western, and at several different schools. So I did get accepted to several different programs, and after looking at them, I was like, yep, U of T definitely seems like the one for me. I'm already familiar with the school because I went there for undergrad, and they're on Hospital Row, so they have access to Sick Kids Hospital, UHN Network, like some of the best hospitals in Canada. So I decided to go with them. Once you're in the master's program, they worked really hard to keep you there. I found it had a different feel than undergrad. Undergrad, everybody is trying to get the highest grades in the class, and you're kind of in competition with all of your other classmates, sort of. And then when you get into the master's program, you made it. Like you're in the program. Everybody, it felt like a tighter knit group of friends in the class. Like we would all hang out together. The teachers really worked to make sure that you were happy and that you felt comfortable in the program, and they worked really hard to keep you there. So overall, I would say that my master's experience was a little bit better than my undergrad experience just for that reason. But the physiotherapy program was excellent overall. The hospital placements were incredible, and I really grew to enjoy the physiotherapy program. Um, I had a placement at Sick Kids Hospital in the respiratory and cardiac ward, as well as on the burn unit and plastic surgery, which was sort of tough seeing the kids going through things like that, but it was also extremely rewarding. So that was a really special experience to get to have that. I was also at Providence Healthcare working with neurological patients, people who had suffered strokes, brain injuries, things like that, which I also really enjoyed. And then I had an orthopedic placement at Sunnybrook St. John's Hospital, where I worked most of the time with post-surgical people, but also sometimes with amputees and stuff like that. We also had a spinal cord injury unit in the physiotherapy program, and so we got to go to Lyndhurst Center, and it was just amazing to see people who had these injuries and were learning to walk again sometimes and live with these injuries. And it was a really amazing part of the program. So after that, COVID hit, and that was tough because we still had several placements to do in our program, and no one wanted to touch anybody else because they didn't want to get COVID, and physiotherapy is a very hands-on profession. So that was a little bit tough to finish the program, but luckily I was placed at an orthopedic private practice clinic in Aurelia, who ended up hiring me after my double placement there finishing up. So currently I'm working in Aurelia at this private practice clinic, and I do really enjoy it. Like, the physiotherapy is a highly regulated profession, so there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of obligations that you have to meet to the college. But at the end of the day, it's a very rewarding profession because you feel like you're actually making this small little difference in someone's life. Like, people come in and they can barely walk, and they feel like this is it, this is the end of their life. They're not going to be able to do stuff anymore. And sometimes you can get them walking again and enjoying life again and playing with their grandkids and things like that. Or post-surgical injuries, people are just in so much pain, and you're able to decrease their pain and get them back to doing the things that they want to do. There's just so many opportunities to advance yourself in physiotherapy as well. Like, you can take acupuncture, you can do lymphedema massage for post-cancer patients, you can do pelvic health physiotherapy, which a lot of people don't realize that physios do. You can work with children, you can work with elderly people, you can work in hospital, you can work in private practice, you can open your own clinic, and there's so many jobs available right now. So it's a really rewarding profession to get into. So was I originally going for physiotherapy? No, but I feel like I've landed in the right spot, and I think other people would enjoy it too. After I finished my undergrad, I was extremely burnt out. I was really tired from the 4 years of studying, and I was extremely stressed because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, I was feeling a little bit demotivated because I was still waitressing, which is the job that I had had before I went to university. Meanwhile, some of my friends had graduated from professional programs like nursing or things like that, where when they came out of their undergrad, they had a full-time job. And so I was just sort of feeling a little bit demotivated and stuck. And I decided that I was going to go traveling, just to clear my head a little bit. I worked all summer, and I saved up about $6,000 or $7,000, and I booked a one-way flight to Iceland. Um, I booked a week in a hostel in Iceland, and then I didn't have any plans from there. I decided to go on my own because no one could travel with me at the same time and commit to the timeline that I had. So it was sort of go or don't go. So I decided to go. And it was one of the best things that I ever did. Planning a trip like that, like, I had to be careful, I had to be choosy about sort of where I wanted to go by myself as a solo female traveler. But I ended up choosing Iceland, Scotland, England, Switzerland, Crete, and Athens in Greece. So I went to 5 countries over 6 weeks. And I finally ran out of money after the 6 weeks, so I came back home. Um, but it was honestly just one of the greatest experiences that I've ever had, and I would recommend it to anybody who, financially is capable or has the time to do it, because I found that after high school, I went straight to university, and it was just my life was so academic heavily all the time. And I wanted the chance to be able to relax and just not be evaluated all the time academically and just see what I enjoyed out of life. Um, so going to these countries and just seeing other cultures and trying other food, seeing all the beautiful places that the world has to offer, and broadening my horizons a little bit. Also, just like feeling independent, like not having someone there to plan everything for me. If you made a mistake, you made a mistake. Like, I booked several wrong flights and I lost money on that. And there were probably a couple choices that I made in terms of travel that were a little bit risky, but I made it through just fine. And the level of independence that it gave me after traveling and knowing that I was capable of making my way across 5 countries all by myself and having to navigate different cultures, different languages, um, different topographies, even with the Alps and stuff like that. Physically, it just felt very empowering, uh, personally. And so when asked if I would recommend it to other people, absolutely, I'd recommend it to anybody who has the chance to go do that. It was one of the best experiences of my life, and I think that anybody who has the chance to do it should really go do it. As a last little thing, just as encouragement to people who are going into the biology program at UTM, um, I just wanted to say, firstly, don't panic. The information that they're hitting you with is a lot, but don't worry. The stuff that you learned in high school will carry you through. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to study a lot, but you're going to be okay. Like, even if your first year is bad, I failed calculus in my first year, and it was so bad that I never retook calculus. Um, and my marks were horrible. My GPA was like a 2.3 in my first year. Um, it was just really bad. I had to take 2 years of summer school after that to make up for the credit that I lost because it was a full year calculus credit. And by doing the 2 years of summer school, it gave me an opportunity to take more psychology courses and things like that that I did like. And that's when I was like, maybe I should switch my program over. A biology major requires calculus, but an anthropology major doesn't require calculus. So I was originally going to do a biology major, but I just did a biology minor. So I just switched it around to make it work for me. Um, I applied to medical school and I didn't get in. But instead of, you know, losing hope, I gave myself a break. I went traveling for a little bit. I worked for a year and I thought about what I wanted to do. I saw a career counselor, and overall, I narrowed down my options. So during that time, it exposed me to physiotherapy because I had some injuries during that time. And had I gone to medical school, I probably would have enjoyed it very much, but I probably wouldn't have been exposed to physiotherapy without that gap in that period of time. So even when you're having a moment that feels like a failure, like, oh, I failed calculus, or I didn't get into medical school, or whatever, like it just seems so overwhelming, you're still creating these sort of opportunities for other things that you enjoy to fill that time. So I would say, just as a recommendation, like, don't panic. It's going to be okay. You're going to get through. Um, Even if your GPA is really bad in first year, like, I pulled my socks up, and by third and fourth year I had straight A's and my GPA was quite good again. So it was good enough to get into master's programs. So it's not the end of the world if your first year is really bad. If you bomb a test or something, there's going to be lots of little quizzes and things like that to make up your grades. And I recommend going to your professor's office hours, because meeting them one on one really kind of it's more friendly. It feels like you know them one-on-one. You know, it's just a friendlier feel when you're in a class of 500 people. So I recommend going and talking to them, and then sometimes they can have suggestions or things like that that you can do um, to make up the grades. So if you're going into first year bio, I hope you enjoy it and that you find some of what I've said helpful or hopeful. And if you're nearing the end and you're just running out of steam, then you're going to make it. Okay? Thank you. Bye bye.